So, hi everybody. Today I am chatting to Jacqueline Wilson. Jacqueline is one of Britain's best-selling and most loved children's authors. The creator of Tracy Beaker and Hetty Feather, among many other characters. She's written over 100 children's books with sales over 40 million copies. Among many other accolades, Jacqueline was appointed a Dame for her services to children's literature. Jacqueline, thank you so much for chatting today. I want to ask you about so much, but we're here to talk about your latest book, The Magic Faraway Tree, this new adventure that's being published in May.
That's right, yeah.
So, tell me, what inspired you to write a sequel to Enid Blyton's The Magic Faraway Tree?
It isn't exactly a sequel. It's a kind of follow-on. I love these books. There are three particular Faraway Tree books that I read when I was coming up for 6. They were the first books that I read, actual chapter books. And I started off just pointing along the sentence in a rather laborious way, got so involved in the story that by the end of the book, I was a really fluent reader. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. I adored these books. I love the whole concept of this tree that you climbed up. You met so many different people. I particularly love Silky the Fairy, and I wanted to be Silky the Fairy. She was just my ideal person. And she has a friend called Moonface who has a slippery slip right down the middle of the tree, like the best slide ever. And he has very special sweets called toffee shots that sort of explode deliciously in the mouth. And they have a friend called the Saucepan Man, who clanks along and frequently talks in odd rhymes. I mean, there are so many different people. The Faraway Tree is teeming with odd magical people, but that's not actually the point of the books. When the children climb right to the top of the tree, you go up a little ladder through the clouds, and there is a magic land. And it's not the same land. You have no idea what land you're going to be in. Sometimes there are scary lands. I do remember in, I think, the first book, The Enchanted Wood, there was the land of polar bears. And
I remember that.
quite fierce polar bears. But at the end was the land of birthdays, which was so much my favorite. And I never could decide, would I choose a pony? Would I choose wings so I could fly? Or would I choose a walking, talking doll that could be real for me? And I just thought these books caught the imagination and certainly made me make up my own magic lands and pretend that I was part of everything. And so when many years later, I was asked by the publishers, would you fancy doing a follow-on in the series? And I thought, well, this is incredible. Very few people actually get to revisit favorite children's books, and then you're in control. Your fingers are on the computer. And I thought right from the start, I don't want to just try and rewrite an Enid Blyton book. That would be impertinent and wouldn't be relevant for today. I wanted to write my own style with my own modern children, and have my own magic lands, because who wouldn't want to make them up? But I'm very respectful to the magic of the original books, and know perfectly well they're still selling enormously now. And so I don't monkey with them at all. I just keep anything that happens in the Enchanted Wood is exactly, well, not exactly, but more or less the same as they are in the 3 marvelous original books, because why meddle with something that works so well?
Oh, exactly.
But occasionally the children's reactions are very much what modern children would think, I hope. And I can't remember writing a book that I've enjoyed more than this. It was just like going on holiday.
Oh, how lovely, how lovely. And what would so the most suitable age range, what would that be, do you think?
I would say 6 to 10. Um,
Okay.
but I think sometimes people like a comfort book, even when they're 11 plus, say, when you're not feeling well or your best friend's gone off with somebody else. I think they could also work for slightly older children or very reluctant readers, because there's a sort of a way of just sucking you away for your own life into this world that works its magic.
Yes, I started sort of skim reading it last night, and actually think I quite like to read it. Very comforting and nostalgic, takes you back to your childhood, I should think.
It does, and I think too that it's important for children to read something which is about actual imaginative adventures and not just silly adventures
Yes.
or ultra dramatic adventures. And even though I myself also write quite serious books about children who have had a troubled life or whatever, I think sometimes, particularly after the pandemic, I think it's time for a little bit of lightening up and for children to read a book just for sheer pleasure, just for
Yes.
fun.
Nice escapism for
Yes,
everybody.
yes.
So were there any challenges you faced while writing this book?
Well,
And
I
if so, what were they?
I think the biggest challenge was I read the three Blyton books very carefully, and I realized that these children who are young, 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that, they go off all day long in the woods, and mother really doesn't turn a hair. And it just would seem so peculiar to most children to be able to do that. I think they find it fun, but perhaps even a bit disconcerting. And so I had to have a cunning device. Once you cross the ditch and get into the Enchanted Wood, they've realized eventually time stands still. And so they can have all these adventures when mother and father, mum and dad, think that they're just running about in the lane outside the cottage. And most mums and dads, were quite happy while they're having a second coffee with their breakfast to let the kids play outside for a bit, but would be totally alarmed if they disappeared for hours on end. So I changed that, and I think occasionally, on, for instance, I felt quite sorry for Dame Washalot because she seems to be put in a baddie position in that when she's finished doing her washing up to her elbows in hot soapy water and she tips it down the tree, well, where else can she tip it? And
Yes.
they don't seem to have electricity in the Enchanted Wood. So just to give a bit of moral support, I gave her a best friend called Dame Iron All Day. And then occasionally in the magic lands, like in the land of bouncy castles, the two dames go up to the magic land and lift up their skirts and sort of jump around on the bouncy castles and have fun.
Oh, very
So,
nice.
now and then I have little twists like that, but always keeping very much to nearly all the rules that Enid Blyton herself clearly had laid down.
Yeah. So do you think this book, well, I sort of like to hope that it would encourage children, the children of today, to explore nature and the outside environment, hopefully diverting them away from modern technology, the likes of TikTok and all that screen time we can't get our children away from. It's taking over their lives. I mean,
Yes.
obviously not for them to disappear from their parents for 5 hours, but just
I
get them out.
wish that would be lovely. I live in the country now, and I do find that whenever I go out for a longish walk, there are heaps of children playing down by the river or in the woods with a mum or a dad or a fond friend of the family or whatever. So I think children in the country generally reasonably appreciate life until they get in their teens, and then
yes.
they whine and moan because they can't go out
Kevin the
clubbing or
teenager.
whatever. Yeah, but I would like children to get into the whole idea of playing outdoors and just noticing trees. I mean,
Yes.
it's so sad that many things that my generation took for granted. I mean, one of the things you did at primary school, you had to collect on your way to school sort of 5 different leaves and try and identify what trees were and draw the trees. Whereas most modern children, most urban children certainly, it's just a tree and that's
I know
that.
they don't do that anymore. I remember having
No.
to do things like that.
It would be lovely, but then I would say that because I am a bit of a technophobe and I can't see the joy
Traction of it.
No, I can't. But
Much
then
better without it, I think. It
I
clutters our minds and stresses us all out.
yeah, I do think so. But I think most children would think differently from
Yeah,
us.
probably. Well, hopefully your book will change their mind.
Maybe.
How do you compare the writing of this book with any of your previous books? Are you able to sort of compare your experience with others?
I think the tone of the book is me and the way I write about children, but there are no really desperately worrying events happening. I mean, in a recent book out, a time slip novel, I write about the real true conditions in a Victorian workhouse. Well, no, there are no land of workhouses in my faraway tree land. I mean, this is a book purely for fun to read, escapism, and hopefully a way of stimulating a child's imagination so that they might think, well, which magic land would I like to go to? Or indeed, what would be the scariest land ever? And also think to themselves, well, what would I do if a dragon started running towards me? I think it's fun to think that way. And certainly I would be enchanted myself if any child sent me their own versions of what they think it would be like.
How brilliant. Well, maybe I can ask our members' children if they'd like to send you a version. You might
That
get
would be
swamped. Jacqueline, what inspired you to become a writer? What age were you when you started writing?
Well, I think it must have been very young. I know when I was 6, I had to have my tonsils out, as many people of my generation did. And I do remember the doctor who was going to do the operation was sweet enough to come round and meet the little patient, sort of quivering in bed, wondering whether it was going to hurt. And to put us at our ease, he asked what children wanted to be when they grew up. And I surprised everybody, including my mother, who was there with me, by saying, I want to write books.
Oh,
And
wow.
because already books were far more important to me than my toys. I just loved them and loved living in an imaginative world with them. And I think it was as soon as I saw in the spine of a book that, as well as the title, there was a name, and this name was a writer. I thought I'd like to do that. In my day, you didn't have writers come to schools or appear at literary events for children. So writers were rather sort of nebulous beings, although funnily enough, I did read at quite a young age Enid Blyton's autobiography for children called The Story of My Life. And I still have my copy of it.
Oh,
and
wow.
at the back, there's all the hundreds of books that she'd written. And in my childish biro, I had ticked the books that I'd read. I seem to have gone through an awful lot of them. And I was very pleased to see all 3 Faraway Tree books, big ticks of
Good,
enthusiasm.
good. So you've published over 100 books during your career. How do you keep your writing fresh and exciting?
That's the difficult one.
Yeah.
I would not like people to think, oh God, she's just churning them out. I like to think of as many different ways of writing a story as I possibly can. And when I'm completing one story, I already have the idea for the next one. And I'd like sometimes to surprise people. And but also somebody has particularly liked a title in the past, I
Yeah.
might decide to do a sequel and see if not only children would like it, but maybe some young mums who had read a particular book and then might like to see, oh, this has happened, or indeed time has stood still as it does in the Enchanted Wood. So each time I want it to be different, so that if somebody read me a page of any of my books, I would have a vague idea, oh yes, that's such and such, or that's
Yes.
such and such. Although I must admit, if somebody asked me to name all 100 and whatever it is of my books, I would be
Wouldn't be able to.
completely floundering.
No, I'm not surprised. Do you have a particular writing routine and a process that you sort of always religiously follow?
Yes, I do. I have a lovely study with a beautiful view outside. I rarely write in it. I just keep my reference books in there and old files and stuff like that. Mostly I write in bed. In the morning, the cat to be fed, the dogs to be taken out into the garden, cup of coffee to be made. Then I'm back in bed in my pajamas. And yeah, I really do feel I get more ideas the nearer I am to being asleep. There's something about the unconscious brain that is more in gear at that time. So I'll open up my computer. I might just read the last sentence that I wrote, so I don't go off to a complete tangent.
Yes.
But, and then I start, and it's the easiest time of all for me to write, and it's no real great effort. I'm kind to myself now. I used to write thousands of words in a day. Now I'm very happy if I have to write 500 words.
Okay.
Not allowed out if I don't.
No.
If it's really flowing, I'll go up to about 1,000 words, but then that's it for
That's
the
it.
day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's then rewriting, there's all sorts of articles, endless emails, correspondence, different things like that. So it's, I can't just take the rest of the day off.
Right, I'm off.
Yeah. But the important time is that time when I'm sitting up in bed and in my imaginary world.
How brilliant. And how do you balance your writing career with your personal life and your other interests? And what are your other interests and hobbies?
Well, I'm a great reader. I love browsing in bookshops. I like looking in book catalogues. I like going to art exhibitions. I love going for long walks in the country or along the seaside because I'm in deep country and yet the seaside's only 2 miles away. So
where do you live, Jacqueline? Sorry.
I live in a little village in East Sussex.
Lovely.
And it's perfect.
Oh,
I mean, we have all sorts of village feuds and gossips, but
yes.
I've met such lovely people. I also swim. I love to swim. When it's freezing cold like this, I do have a little pool, but much too cold. But there's a special swimming pool I go in where, much to my annoyance, most people there, it's a university pool, are doing sports science. And so they're athletic creatures that go swoop, swoop, swoop.
Yeah.
So I have to stick in the slow lane. But you can have a good, fast swim there. And nothing makes you feel better and more relaxed than have a good swim. And I love to see friends. We meet up with different friends every week. And I like shopping too. But I've got so used to, I have 2 lives. I mean, that's my special life, but I also have my imaginary life,
Yeah.
and nothing is better. And you've got heaps of problems about, I don't know, some bill that hasn't been paid properly, and trying to prove it, and it's so tedious hanging on the line. But also I can, while I'm hearing that maddening music, I can scribble a little bit of novel just to carry on. So it's a way of
brilliant.
Yes.
Very good at multitasking.
Yes. I think women are naturally.
Yes, we're much better than men, that's for sure.
Yes,
I
yes.
think. Jacqueline, can we hope for more adventures of the Magic Faraway Tree in the future, or are you unable to answer that?
You certainly can hope for more. In October, there will be the Magic Faraway Tree, a Christmas adventure.
Oh, wow.
And where my children go back to the cottage. It's the typical seasonal weather, and of course the Faraway Tree Magic Lands reflect the season too. And how could I possibly write about Christmas without actually a meeting of Santa Claus?
Wow.
And I've had immense fun doing it.
Oh, I bet. How lovely. Well, that could be a brilliant present for my members to buy their children, grandchildren, godchildren, and any other children.
That would be great.
That would be brilliant. And can you just tell me, this current new book,
yes,
The Magic Faraway Tree, that's coming out in May, when is that sort of able to be?
Thursday, the 25th of May is publication.
Okay, right, brilliant. Okay, well, I'll make sure everyone knows about that. And thank you so much for sparing the time to have a chat today.
Well, thank you for asking such lovely questions.
No, I really enjoyed it, and can't wait to read both books. I think I'm going to read them both myself.
Okay then, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.